Before we get into this video, let me make one thing clear. This ain't about hating America, it's about hating corruption. It's about exposing what happens when a society turns its back on God, on morality, and on truth. Don't confuse patriotism with blind obedience. If your country celebrates filth, exports perversion, and calls it freedom, you better believe I'm going to speak on it. Islam doesn't bend for flags, for trends, or for comfort. We stand on truth, even if we're the last ones standing. So buckle up and don't take this personal unless it applies to you. We're going to cover another video from Middle Nation, our brother Shahid Bolson. We're going to get right into this, but before we do, be sure to hit the like and the subscribe button, and I want you to share this content with anybody and everybody on every platform that you have who may find it beneficial, inshallah. Without further ado, let's get it going.
I don't hate the West. I don't hate America. We hate evil and wrongdoing, and you should too. But they've got you thinking that you have to patriotically defend the evil and wrongdoing that your country does, even when you yourselves are really the worst victims of your own so-called civilization. That's the worst part of all this. As I've said before, the only real conspiracy theory that I believe in is the conspiracy of Shaitan, of Iblis. And he mobilizes in societies those sectors of the society according to their own agendas to serve his agenda. And his agenda is to lead as many people into hell as possible. His agenda is to try to prove that his contempt for Nabi Adam alayhi salam was justified. So he wants to prove that human beings are worthless. He wants to prove that they're contemptible. So there's another deeper reason why they want to say that America represents the freest country in the world. Think about that. Why Shaitan wants you to have that impression. Because free, theoretically, means the most natural state, the least controlled state, the least coerced, and the most organic expression of human life and of human society. American society, therefore, must represent the best representation of the true nature of human beings. That's why freedom is the key point in America's image in this grand scheme of things. Because if this is what humanity is supposed to look like when it's left free, then we're surely just as bad as Iblis thought we were. America has become the largest consumer of pornography in the world, which is an industry of degradation that reduces human beings to objects, dehumanizes relationships, and turns intimacy into a spectacle for profit. America's number one, the undisputed champion of this exploitation. Every second of every day, every second, over 30,000 Americans are viewing filthy, explicit content. And each viewing takes them another step away from the sacredness of intimacy and all the blessings that is produced by the intimacy between men and women, between a husband and a wife. America's youth are engaged in sexual activity at an earlier age than almost anywhere else, with nearly 40% of high school students having had intercourse before they even reach 17. This hookup culture isn't just tolerated, it's celebrated, it's encouraged, and it's sold to young people as if it's some kind of an achievement. You sexualize your young without ever maturing them. In their high schools, their colleges, and in your media, young people are told that commitment is a burden, that restraint is repressive, and that pleasure is the only purpose. This isn't freedom, this is engineering. Then look at what they call their alternative lifestyles, which they celebrate as kinks and fetishes and what have you. In America, nearly half of the entire population openly engages in so-called non-traditional sexual behaviors, from bondage to role play to things that I won't even say aloud. These practices are marketed and embraced as part of modern life. They transgress the limits of decency, of normality, and the media glamorizes that and makes perversion normal. They make it seem like it's even healthy.
This ain't freedom. This is Iblis' circus, and you are the clown. You turn modesty into oppression and sin into self-expression. You call it kink, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls it fahisha. Indeed, those who like to spread immorality among the believers will have a painful punishment in this world and the hereafter. You flood your screens with filth and wonder why your soul feels empty, and you glorify your bodies, but your hearts are dead. What you're calling sexual liberation is spiritual decapitation. You turned your young boys into addicts and your young girls into objects, and you're selling it as empowerment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, do not even approach zina. Indeed, it is ever an immorality and evil as a way. You want to prove Iblis right, that mankind is vile and that we're weak, impulsive, and worthless. But the believer says, no, I was made for more than this. You were born to bow, brother, not to binge. And if you don't wake up, you're not just promoting destruction, you're walking into Jahannam with your chest out and a pride flag in your hand and calling it freedom. That's not freedom. That's willful slavery to Shaitan. May Allah protect us.
Like it's even healthy. But what is this, if not the complete perversion of intimacy, of normal relationships? This isn't an organic expression of humanity, it's a corruption of it, and it's calculated. Their own surveys show that infidelity is on the rise in that country, especially among the young, with almost 1 in 5 married people admitting to cheating on their spouse. That's the ones who admit it.
Yep.
Infidelity isn't just a personal failure, it's a social disease, a breakdown of the very structure that holds societies together. What does that tell you about their definition of freedom? About their value of their rights? If loyalty and trust are cast aside as old-fashioned, as obstacles to satisfying individual desire, which is the prime objective, and when these desires are left unchecked, it's no surprise that their country leads the developed world in sexually transmitted diseases. Over 2.3 million cases of chlamydia, gonorrhea, and syphilis were reported in one single year. The CDC says that America accounts for 30% of gonorrhea cases worldwide. Oof. There's almost 1 million abortions each year. That's a society that views its own offspring as disposable. And again, these are pregnancies that are almost always the result of intercourse that should have never taken place. But they promote promiscuity. They discourage impulse control. They devalue intimacy and relationships. And they constantly depict the relationship between men and women as adversarial and hostile. And then when a pregnancy occurs, after a series of bad decisions and bad choices, they talk about the right to choose, when what they mean is the right to avoid the consequences of the choices that they've already made. They made women think that empowerment means being just as unaccountable as the society allows men to be, because men can walk away from women whom they impregnate, so women should be able to terminate those pregnancies. Freedom from accountability, that's what it means. Freedom from accountability for all. This is what they've brainwashed you to think. This isn't natural, it's an engineered message. But you know, they always have seen children as disposable, seen them as burdens. Research the orphan trains, if you don't know about it. Thousands of children shipped out of the cities, out to the West, and just distributed to anyone who wanted, you know, child labor, to work on farms or to work in mines, or even worse. Yes, the United States, and until today, has one of the highest rates of child sexual abuse in the Western world. 1 in 5 American children will experience abuse, on average, before they ever reach adulthood. Hundreds of thousands of young girls and young boys are trafficked and exploited every single year in that country. And child protective services have been proven to act as procurers, as suppliers of children. They have a drug and alcohol-fueled culture. Binge drinking and substance abuse aren't just tolerated, they're part of the mainstream American culture.
Yeah.
Their own statistics show, obviously, that substance abuse is strongly linked to risky, often reckless sexual behavior, which results in serious consequences like unplanned pregnancies, like STDs, and like sexual assault. But all of this is celebrated. Think about the endless shows, the endless songs and movies that glamorize promiscuity, glamorize infidelity and sexual adventure. This is a society saturated with hypersexualized content, a place where dignity and modesty are ridiculed, where decency is painted as repression. This is enslavement to desires, to impulses, to Shaitan's whispers, to the waswasa of Shaitan. If this is the most free society, the most natural society, then human beings must be debased. They must be atrocious creatures. That's the whole point. That's the whole point of pretending that America is so free. They want you to think that this society is a natural outcome of people being free. that this is what happens when individuals are left to follow their own will without constraint and without rules.
This is what happens when we remove Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the equation. Chaos. Carnal chaos. We call it freedom, and the Quran calls it ghafla, heedlessness. It's a society addicted to our own downfall. Allah reminds us in the Quran, have you seen the one who takes his desires as his God? That's America. That's the West. We're worshiping our impulses and call it identity. Let's talk about these facts. 1 in 5 marriages poisoned by betrayal, millions infected with diseases of the flesh, and there's millions more people murdering their unborn children to erase our lust-filled mistakes. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, do not kill your children for fear of poverty. We provide for them and for you. Indeed, their killing is a great sin. You ain't pro-choice, brother. You're pro-shirk. You're replacing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's law with your own ego, and you're dressing it up as rights. And now, you're mocking modesty. Dignity is being laughed at. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, if you have no shame, then do as you wish. That's in Shahid Bolson. Well, now they're doing as they wish, and it's disgusting. But here's the truth you're not ready to hear. America ain't collapsing in spite of its freedom. It's collapsing because of it. You remove the anchor of revelation, and now you're drowning in your own filth, and you're blaming the water. This ain't nature. It's what happens when you live without taqwa and you die without izzah. And wallahi, brothers and sisters, this is not freedom. This is humiliation.
And without rules. They want you to believe that this state of affairs represents human nature at its core. That this is the truest, most organic expression of the human spirit. That if people were free from every shackle, from every rule, then this dystopia would be the inevitable result, would be the inevitable end. They want you to look at the decay, the despair, the depravity, and see it as an unfiltered, raw version of humanity. Iblis's version of humanity. Look at the violence. More than 48,000 deaths each year by gunfire. You've got children dying as the victims of bullets and mass shootings in a place that insists that they're the world's policemen. They'll tell us this is all part of the natural order, right? A free society. But this level of terror, of instability, of bloodshed in the streets, that's not freedom. This is a culture where security has been sacrificed for profit and for power, because only profit and only power deserve to be secure and protected, deserve to be served and protected. That's the culture. They want you to look at the education system in America and believe that illiteracy and crumbling schools are just part of the natural struggle of a free nation. But how can that be? How can this be natural when the wealthiest country in the world, so-called, has 1 in 5 adults who are unable to read or complete basic tasks? How can it be anything but a failure that millions of children are denied a basic education, that millions will be pushed into a lifetime of poverty? They want you to think that's human nature? This is not human nature. This is neglect. It's a betrayal of the very people that they claim to empower, that so-called civilization claims to empower better than anyone else. And look at homelessness, the misery of families living on the streets, in tents, in cars, over 500,000 people on any given night in the United States with nowhere to call home. Millions more who are barely able to afford their rent, who are just moments away from homelessness. They'll tell you again, what? That this is the natural result of an open economy, of a free market economy, that some will rise and some will fall. That's just how freedom works. But this is not freedom. This isn't the freedom that they promise. This is abandonment. A society that discards its own people and tells them that that's just the way it is. And why don't you call them what they really are? Why do you say homeless? Why do you say unhoused? They are internally displaced people, displaced by your own system, by your own society, refugees with no refuge, not by a traditional war, but by a system that functions as a form of economic war against its own population. Is it any wonder that they have an epidemic of mental illness in that country? Over 21% of American adults suffer from mental health issues. Nearly half of teens express having feelings of deep sadness, depression, and hopelessness. Another 48,000 lives every year are lost to suicide because they've normalized isolation, they've normalized empty consumption, and an endless chase for meaning in a society that offers you none. They want you to think this is natural. This isn't human nature. It's a distortion of it. This is the result of a culture that strips life of any purpose and strips society of community itself. I mean, a human being would not commit self-murder if they lived in a society that values human beings. And look at the devastation of addiction in that country. It's just another form of suicide, just slow motion. 100,000 people dying of drug overdoses in a single year. Families destroyed, communities hollowed out by opioids, fentanyl, substances that numb people from the misery around them. Is this addiction the mark of a free spirit? Or is it a symptom of lives emptied of any kind of connection and people who've been made to feel worthless, who are seeking some kind of an escape from a reality that seems inescapable? But they want you to accept it as natural. But this is the consequence of a society that feeds on people's weakness, that profits from their suffering. I'm telling you, your own so-called civilization hates you. And you accuse me of hating America when no one could possibly hate you more than America hates you.
Let me tell you something that most y'all ain't ready to hear. This system don't just neglect you, it despises you, and you keep defending it like it's your savior. You're pledging your allegiance to the very thing that throwing your kids into coffins and your families into shelters and your very souls into hellfire. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us in the Quran when he says, "Do they not travel through the land so that they may have hearts with the reason and ears which to hear? For indeed it is not the eyes that's blind, but the hearts within the chest that are blind." You think your homelessness, gun violence, mass self-unaliving, mass depression, and addiction is just the cost of freedom. No, it's the cost of godlessness. You removed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from your homes, your schools, your laws, and then you act surprised whenever your nation becomes a graveyard with Wi-Fi. You don't have an epidemic of mental illness. You have an epidemic of meaninglessness. You replaced your faith with pharmaceuticals. You replaced your dhikr with dopamine. You replaced your worship with working 2 jobs just to survive, and you still say that all this stuff is normal. Astaghfirullah. Astaghfirullah. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam reminds us that the strong believer is better and more beloved than the weak believer in Sahih Muslim. But your system keeps producing weakness, moral, spiritual, financial, and then it sells you pills to survive. America tells you you're free while it keeps injecting your veins, bankrupt your soul, and leaves you empty. That's not a civilization, brothers and sisters. That's a spiritual genocide. Take heed. The Quran and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, "Whoever turns away from my remembrance, indeed, he will have a depressed life." That's in Surah Taha, Surah 20, Ayah number 124. Look around, brothers and sisters. You're calling this progress and it's regression. We're going backwards. You call it a free society, and it's just a polished prison. I'm not here to coddle your feelings. I'm here to call it out. Because if you think that this is normal, you're already lost. Brothers and sisters, I'm going to cut it here. This is about half of the video called American Hate by Brother Shahid Bolson at Middle Nation. I'm going to cover part 2 soon, inshallah. Be sure to hit the like and the subscribe button, and I will link this video in the description down below as always. Share this content with anybody and everybody who you think may find it beneficial, who continues to rely on the American system as if it's their savior. Brothers and sisters, we've got to make some changes within ourselves, within our heart, first and foremost, before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make any changes for us. The responsibility and the duty falls on us, on nobody else. This stuff is not up for debate and it's not up for discussion in that regard. If we want change, then we got to be the ones to make change first, inshallah ta'ala. I know times are hard out there, and Shaitan ain't making it easy for us. The dunya ain't making it easy for us. There's fitna and temptation, trial and troubles and tribulations around every corner. But the truth of the matter is, we have a choice. We have a choice in what we accept. We have a choice in what we will do in our words, our thoughts, our actions. We have a choice in what perversions that we'll feed on and what things we'll allow into our homes and into the minds of our kids. It's up to us. It ain't up to nobody else. It's not up to your neighbor. It's not up to your boss. It's not up to your wife. It's not up to your kids. Wives, it's not up to your husband. It's up to you, to each and every one of us individually, first and foremost, to make a change. And then let our surroundings reflect the change within ourselves. That's all I got, brothers and sisters. Thank you for watching. Until next time, stay strong as the Sunnah.